Task 5, My Metacognition. Hello and welcome to my metacognition video. Along as I take you through my English ISU, where I explore the issues faced by Indigenous peoples in Canada. My ISU was a comprehensive task that involved various elements, so let's dive into that. What were my steps in creating this full task? Was it a good plan? Embarking on my English ISU, I meticulously devised 8 strategic steps to pave the way for success. When it came for step 2, I broke down tasks into distinct phases, aligning each step with its respective deadline. This allowed me to make sure I was keeping track of the timeline that I created for myself during step 1. Step 4 was the part where I conducted my research to help me with the tasks that I had set out for myself. For example, when it came to task 1, I researched what article I wanted to do and whether or not I wanted to analyze a poem, a piece of art, or a song. Step 5 allowed me to actually sit down and start doing my work. When it came to step 6, I consulted with teachers, peers, and pretty much I got all the feedback I could to improve my ISU and really to, make it the best it could be. After getting the feedback from my teachers, peers, and other sources available to me, that's when step 7 became prominent. This was the step where I honed in and really listened to the feedback that my teachers, students, and other people were giving me. I used this feedback and I asked myself a question of, okay, how can I use all of my resources and all of this feedback to really set myself up for success and amplify the work that I had and bring it up a step further. Lastly, step 8. So at this part, when it came to step 8, I was completely done all of the tasks and I had all my feedback and I took it over myself. I was ready to submit and I was feeling so happy with the final outcome of my ISU. I didn't have any anxieties of, oh, maybe I should have taken it more seriously or I should have done it this way or I should have done that, because I really used all of these steps to the best of my abilities and I really used my teachers and other resources to make it so that I could do the best when it came to this ISU and I wasn't feeling shy or embarrassed to ask for help. Did my finished product come out as I envisioned? Why or why not? I am thrilled with the outcome of my English ISU, as it exceeded my expectations and closely aligns with the vision I had for it. The process of crafting this project allowed me to delve into the subject matter in a way that truly reflects on my understanding and perspective of Indigenous issues and the correlation with oppression. The careful breakdown of tasks, starting with the annotations on the impactful poem written by Rita Jones that talks about oppression, sets a solid foundation on how I view the word oppression. Also, before starting this ISU task, I envisioned the conversation I had with one of my peers to be a really organic and meaningful conversation where I could educate one of my friends about the oppression that Indigenous peoples faced. And I knew that going into this ISU, I wanted to do the word oppression because I wanted to shed light on how Indigenous peoples have faced oppression. It's a serious issue that's still going on today, and I felt that I could kind of talk about that with my friend, but also it allowed me to be the change maker that I am by having that conversation with people and educating others on oppression. I feel very grateful and fortunate that I was able to complete the Indigenous Studies English course. And this course has prepared me with a lot of information and tools to combat conversations with people. And I'm really proud of how that conversation turned out with Emma and I. Then, for the mind map, once again, I was really happy with how it turned out, and it turned out exactly how I envisioned it to be, which would be a hodgepodge of connections that I could make, text to self, text to world, and text-to-text connections. But also, going into that task, I was excited to see how I could pair this knowledge and how this mind map creation could help with my exam. And I felt fulfilled because after completing that mind map, I felt a sense of relief that, hey, I feel like I'm going to do good on this exam. And I feel like I can make lots of connections that can help me prepare myself to do well when it came to the exam. Then when it came to writing a letter to a member of parliament or someone in politics, I was extremely happy with how this turned out, and once again, to a T, to how I envisioned it. I'm very passionate about human rights, and I really do enjoy teaching people and expressing my views on current events, and this letter allowed me to do just that. I could talk about an issue that I'm passionate about and that I see where change needs to happen, and this was the perfect outlet to allow me to do that. And before writing the letter, I envisioned myself talking to Melissa Lantsman and explaining to her, like, we need your help. You have a platform and you need to be using it to talk about a pressing issue like this. And I feel like with the questions I asked her, with the statements I made, I allowed myself to give her pressure and to bring awareness to this pressing issue. What is the strongest piece of work in this submission? Are there any pieces in the work I'm not overly thrilled with? So to start off answering this question, no, there was nothing that I wasn't thrilled of. I'm the type of person where I take my studies and, academics very seriously, so it wouldn't make sense for me to submit something that I didn't feel like I would be putting my best foot forward with, or something that I wasn't 100% confident in. So when submitting this ISU task, I didn't submit it thinking, oh God, I wish I could have done this, or I should have taken it more seriously. I had a rigorous process laid out so that I could do my best work without feeling scared or worried that I wasn't hitting beyond grade level, or that I wasn't doing the work to my best of my abilities. As I mentioned earlier, it's not in my nature to submit something that I'm not thrilled of, or something that I don't think will get me a nice mark that I'm going to be happy with. So it wouldn't make sense for me to submit something that I feel like I could have done much better on, because I wouldn't let that happen. I would ask for help, ask questions, revise, get people to edit. So doing that naturally, I'm avoiding the issue of submitting work that I don't think is suffice and good for grade 11. With that being said, one of the strongest pieces in my submission was the first task, and this task allowed you to annotate either a piece of artwork, song lyrics, or a poem, for example, and then annotate a relevant news article dedicated to your chosen word. I loved analyzing the poem about Rita Jo, and she talks about her experience at one of the biggest residential schools in Canada. I found the poem to be very emotional, and because I had some sort of attachment to it and I could kind of empathize with Rita, this made me excited to annotate. I was excited to infer. I was excited to ask questions. I was excited to visualize. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, when I said that I'm passionate about human rights and really learning about the injustices in the world, this first task allowed me to do something that I like to do in my free time, which is research current events and see how we can change them for the better. So I got to analyze an article that talks about oppression that Indigenous peoples are facing in Canada due to the police system and how the system that Canada has created, which works against Indigenous people and not in favor of Indigenous people. One last thing that I want to point out about Task 1 and why I believe it was the strongest out of my tasks was because it laid out the groundwork for the rest of the ISU. You know, analyzing that article and that poem, it kind of set like a framework for me, and like it kind of set like the aura of the ISU, and really it like mentally prepared me for how I was going to view the rest of the ISU and how I had to look at the ISU with a lens of oppression. What was easy to complete on this project? What was difficult? Why? I would say that the letter was one of the easiest tasks to complete. The letter to Melissa Lantsman in particular turned out well. My political background and experience in drafting letters made this task relatively easy. Furthermore, writing the letter to Melissa Lantsman was the easiest and most fun part of my English ICU because it aligned with my passion for activism. When you genuinely enjoy what you're doing, tasks become more manageable. And as an activist, crafting a letter addressing urgent human rights issues faced by Indigenous communities allowed me to merge my love for political advocacy and human rights. The process felt natural, and I found joy in bringing awareness to crucial matters. Using my skills to advocate for positive change made the letter writing experience not only easy but also fulfilling, highlighting the idea that when you're passionate about a cause, the work becomes meaningful and enjoyable. The task that I found most challenging and difficult was the mind map. The reason why I found this to be the most difficult was because I was putting the most pressure on myself for this task, just because the way it was communicated to me was, you know, this task will really help you with the exam. If you can do this task and if you're able to make these connections, that means that you're going to set yourself up right for the exam. So I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that I was really honing in and not taking this task for granted, but really using every experience and every connection to the best of my abilities so that I could benefit when it came to the exam. If I were to do this again, what would I change? If I were to do this ISU again, I might focus even more on incorporating Indigenous voices and perspectives directly. I believe that there is always room for improvement, and amplifying Indigenous voices when it comes to oppression is essential in raising awareness about their struggles, what they have dealt with, and what they are currently dealing with. An example of how I could incorporate an Indigenous voice directly would be including it in my letter, maybe sharing a story about how an Indigenous person has faced oppression, just to kind of amplify why I'm writing and to share personal experience, as people can relate to one another when personal stories are shared. Throughout this course, what have I learned about myself as a learner? One thing that I learned about myself was taking this course on Indigenous voices turned out to be a pleasant surprise for me. Despite negative rumors circulating before I enrolled, with people suggesting it might be boring and advising me to take the regular English course privately, I decided to give it a shot. To my delight, I discovered a genuine interest in learning about Indigenous issues and voices. This course debunked misconceptions, proving that preconceived notions can sometimes be misleading. I'm happy to have followed my instincts and embraced this course, as not only changed my perspectives, but also ignited a passion for understanding and advocating for Indigenous rights, making the learning experience more enjoyable. What will I continue to do in English to be successful? What will I change? One thing that I pride myself on is doing well in school, including English. Now, this isn't beginner's luck or just because. I get good marks in English and in other subjects because I take my studies very seriously, and I do genuinely try. I ask questions, I ask for feedback, I always do my homework when it's assigned. I take all my projects seriously. And when in English class, I don't goof around. I don't go on my phone. I don't zone out. I take each English class very seriously and treat it very importantly, because I know that's what's going to set me up for success and will allow me to do well in English and in other courses. So with that being said, I will continue to ask questions, get feedback, conference with teachers, participate in class, and give my teacher my undivided attention when taking part in an English class to be successful for grade 12. I do have to say that sometimes I stress myself out and I work too hard or put too much pressure on myself. So I think moving forward when it comes to grade 12 English, I should be mindful in the fact that I need to take into account my mental health and not put that much pressure on myself, because it does take away from the quality of work that I'm able to submit to my teacher. Well, we are now at the end of my video. Thank you for joining me on this journey throughout my English ISU. Thank you.